Alright, today we're going to go into horror films because I like them. We're not going to go into a really deep discussion of any specific horror films, just kind of the general, overall why I think they're important to society and why I think a lot of libertarians that shun them shouldn't. We should embrace them. And the music today is by a guy named Chris Zabriskie. These are his preludes. They're pretty awesome. Check out his other music. He's really talented. I've tried to record a podcast several times in the past couple of days. It's been a family event, I should say. And it's been kind of hard for me to concentrate. I've been trying to do some, too serious topics for the time that I'm in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to do something funner, something that I find really interesting and provoking. And, there's some people working outside my apartment today. So I apologize for any noise interruptions. But, we'll try to get through this the best we can. Anyway, what I'm going to talk about today is horror films. I'm a huge fan of horror films. The really old school exploitation style, that's the true independent films right there. That was the real stuff before they became respectable in the 90s. They were the real grindhouse films. That, go see this movie for whatever, women in prison, anything like that, just to draw a crowd. That's capitalism, that's very much just trying to make something to make money. You make something that people want to consume. I mean, it's not supposed to be really thought-provoking art. Some of it is, but most of it's not. Most of it is just supposed to be entertainment. And, there's something really compelling about it, and how pure that just entertainment value can be sometimes. And, Army of Darkness has been my favorite movie since I was 8 years old. And, movies, they really wouldn't be the way they are today. Not even the big theatrical movies if it wasn't for the first Evil Dead film. That was really the first film where people went out door to door and raised money themselves. Bought some cheap, crappy suits from a resale shop, went to dentists and stuff like that, and asked them for cash to invest in their film project. And they rent this equipment and they go make this movie, The Evil Dead, the original one, not the one that came out this year. The original one's much better. And they had Sam Raimi direct it. He wrote it with his brother. I might look that up. Bruce Campbell got his real acting start in it, besides the short films that they made before that. And they ended up with the Coen brothers editing it, or one of them. I probably should have looked this stuff up before I started. But, they saw the movie, they were inspired by it, and they raised the money for the movie by making a short film called Into the Woods. Doing that, then making this movie inspired the Coen brothers to go out and make their first movie, Blood Simple. What's the name of it? It's an okay movie. Not my favorite, but they went on to win Academy Awards. People think of them as some of the greatest filmmakers around. And if it wasn't for editing this little horror film that a lot of people haven't ever seen, and a lot of people have, it's a huge cult film, but if it wasn't for this one movie and the guy, that directed Spider-Man, Fargo wouldn't exist. Neither the movie or the TV show. Really. And, so I like horror films. There's some people in the libertarian movement that do not. And I've heard, at least on 2 occasions, I've heard Stephen Mondo and Adam Kokesh on their shows, respectively. I enjoy their shows; they're good stuff. But I've heard them both argue that horror films were encouraging violence. I believe that was the argument. But they didn't like horror films. They were like against it. It was just violence. It was just terrible. I do remember that's the point. They were also having a little argument at the time, if you remember back that far. It was a few years ago. Adam was doing his MMA thing, his mixed martial arts thing, and Stephen Mondo made a comment about how it was violence extended from childhood. That's also what he was saying was with horror films, violence extended from childhood. I've had no trauma, no violent trauma in my childhood. I wasn't, beat severely. I wasn't touched. I didn't see anything horrible. Although I did have some deaths in my family. I've been to far more funerals than I would care to admit. I had a large family, though. A lot of old people. I've met my great-great-grandparents at one point. They were old, and I barely remember them. But they were, great people, really nice people. I remember one of them, they used to call him Pops. He had a cane. He smelled not that great, but he would bring me this, it was a coconut candy. I liked it. Nobody else did. It was probably terrible now. If I didn't have it, I'd probably be like, oh, that's gross. But I liked it at the time. It's a good memory. All accounts, I'm just saying I'm not a bad person. I'm not violent at all. I'm very much a voluntarist. I'm not aggression down to the core. I'll defend myself, but I'm never going to attack anybody. Any gain that can be made with aggression is not worth it. Non-aggressive means an end, I was at a funeral. I remember this. It was a family member. And I didn't really know them. They were kind of a distant relative. And I was standing there. I was looking at the grave. My grandma walks up behind me. She goes, "You are the most empathetic person I know." And then just walks away. And I was kind of stunned by that. I didn't know how to take it. It was kind of bizarre. But I still remember it. It was a little eerie, I guess. Hearing that said to me at a graveyard. And I was wondering, what am I doing that shows, am I showing more attachment here than anyone else? Anyway, even with that, I still love watching horror films, and I think there's a great value in it. There's a huge value that is being missed by people that just dismiss them based off of, they're violent. Like, okay, yeah, they're violent. They're fictional movies, though, that people can choose to watch or not. And just because I go out and watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre 500 times, I'm not going to go out and chainsaw anybody. It would never even slip come into my mind. But the value that I think we can get from horror films in general, and this is even till this day, and that is the political incorrectness that they can bring to the world. It's not acceptable to be politically incorrect in almost any crowd. And one of the easiest ways to get away with it is put it in a horror film. You can put almost anything in a horror film. some of the most disgusting things you can think of. And you're not going to get, stoned, or you're not going to get thrown in prison. Some people have. There have been cases, let's see, Cannibal Holocaust. If anybody's looking forward to the Green Inferno, me too. The movie looks awesome. But it looks just like Cannibal Holocaust from way back in the day. I think it came out in like the 70s. Maybe earlier than that. I don't know. Maybe it could have been the 80s. But a found footage film. So, way before the Blair Witch Project. But they found this footage from a documentary crew that went into the Amazon to, they went to film some documentary, and they get eaten by a cannibal tribe. It is the quintessential cannibal film. And there's a whole bunch of them. There's a ton of these. And I remember I went on YouTube and looked up the trailer for Green Inferno, and there's all these comments from these kids under it, like, this looks just like this video game that just came out, or this looks just like The Last of Us. I know that game. I played that one. That's a pretty good game. Sam Raimi's making a movie out of it. So yeah, awesome. Anyway, there's a ton of these cannibal movies, and they're fun to watch. They're all the same. Figuratively, all the same. It's a group of people that somehow get stranded in a rainforest. They come across a cannibal tribe who proceeds to torture, kill, and eat them, chasing them around a lot. And sometimes people get away, sometimes they don't. I don't think most of the time they do. I mean, they're usually pretty violent, gory movies. And this guy that directed, Cannibal Holocaust, some of the stuff in the movie looks so real that he was arrested. I believe it was in Italy. It was an Italian movie. They put him in prison. They held him until one of the actors appeared in like a commercial or something. And they're like, oh, they're not actually dead. Take a look at, and I don't really like the movie, but Cabin Fever. Remember that? The end of it? And they had those dudes, they came to that town to get their gun, and they had that old guy with the beard there. And you're looking at the guy, and you're like, that guy is this redneck, racist guy. He's this, like, that guy's a son of a bitch. I hate that guy. And, they had this gun or something hanging on the wall, and they ask him what it's for, and he says something earlier in the movie, like, gun's for the niggers. And you're like, oh my God, I can't believe he said that. That's so wrong. It's so terrible to say something like that. And, at the end of the movie, you had those black dudes, they rolled into town, and they go into that store, and they get the gun because he, fixed it for them or something. And that was funny. That is the only good part in the movie, in my opinion. I really do not like that movie. But that scene was funny as hell. And was that scene racist? It used a racial joke that is very politically incorrect. If you were telling that joke at work, you might get fired. If you were to tell a joke kind of along those lines, you might get fired. And that's really where the value of horror films in our culture is today. It's allowing us to do something that censors the culture around us, this whole culture war situation. They don't allow that kind of expression. If you offend somebody, again, it goes back to the whole liberal progressive argument. You offend somebody, you're wrong. But they don't understand that everything offends somebody. Some people really, really hate dogs. Y'all know how a dog, you just heard it bark. Also, besides just being politically incorrect for the hell of it. Sometimes they can reach into territory that is historically accurate and never touched by real, historical films or even history teachers. If you're in school, history teachers don't talk about anything like this. But there's a I wouldn't say great movie. There's a movie called Men Behind the Sun, and it's about a Japanese prison camp set in China during World War II. So they're there torturing Chinese people, and it's gross. I mean, they put this woman's arms into this freeze box and pull her arms out, and then they rip her skin off. They're doing these experiments to see how people just respond, and it's terrible stuff. This is the stuff that you think, you only think of the SS doing, and these are Nazis too. I mean, these were the Japanese during World War II, so they were technically the same deal. But I was kind of sick lately. It was a few months back, and I had gotten a hold of a bunch of Monster Vision episodes. These were, recorded on VHS from TV way back in the 90s. And I mean, even if you look at Horror Host, there's a whole bunch of them too. It's like a whole genre. Horror Host. Look it up. But Joe Bob Briggs, this guy, this cowboy, he's awesome. He would do the drive-in report, 6 dead bodies, 3 breasts, that kind of deal. It's awesome. Go check him out. You can see these clips of him on YouTube. There's a whole bunch of them. And you should. The guy was politically incorrect out the wazoo. He was very much a macho guy, man's man. He was from Texas. He liked big boobs. He liked explosions. He liked beer. And he talked crap about people all the time. He would get letters from people like, "Why are you making fun of, blah blah blah?" I'll make fun of everybody. I'll make fun of you too. And there's one where he was making fun. He was like, so he got a letter from a crippled person, and they were like, "Why didn't you ever make fun of crippled people? I've heard you make fun of people of all these races." He was like, "I'll make fun of crippled people," and he made a crippled joke. And he got in trouble. I mean, he got in a lot of trouble on TV, but it was, absolutely fantastic. And there was nothing like that really around at the time, and there's most certainly nothing like that on TV today, at least that I see. Not as far as Horror Host goes. There's some pretty daring stuff on TV, though. I mean, look at The Walking Dead. That is classic zombie film. That is fantastic. I've been rewatching that with my wife, and it's more invigorating the second time through. But there's still some slow parts in that show. Somebody should just they're filling space. They don't have to, man. There's a lot of story there. They can expand upon a lot of stuff. Yeah, but that show is really pretty gory. It's violent, It shows some twisted characters. A lot of... There's no shallow people there as far as these characters go. I mean, these are well thought out people. You can feel like they're flesh and blood people. You get attached to them. And I think that Carol on the show is a good example of that. She goes from this weak woman who's being beat by her husband to this, spoiler alert, she kills those 2 people when they get infected or get sick from that disease that's going around in the prison. save everybody, like without even thinking about it. And she would have never done anything like that. Not in the first season. And you see these people grow, and they all change. They change every season. You see Carl, the boy, he at first he's completely defenseless. He's useless and just dangerous to everybody. Then he goes and he becomes like psycho. And then he kind of falls somewhere in the middle, which is kind of where he needs to be. You see these people they change. Their mentality changes, and you really have to put people in extreme situations to see that kind of change happen at a rapid rate, which is essentially what this is. They're these people put on the planet Earth, and all hell's broken loose. People were getting killed everywhere, so they have to survive. It's just about survival. Trying to hold on to your humanity. I like it. I think that kind of stuff is worth watching. There's something valuable there that you can't really get from just watching straight up comedies and stuff. And really, the exact opposite is kind of true in comedies. I watched 22 Jump Street recently, and there's a scene in that where Jonah Hill is talking to this guy that comes up, and he's pretending that, what's his name? John Cena? I don't know, the big dude in that movie. He's pretending that guy's giving him a BJ to try to cover up while they're in there. And then there's this kind of funny scene right after it where he's the big guy's like, "What did you just call us?" Because the guy called him a fag. And he went into this whole rant about how you can say homosexual and crap like that, but you can't say fag because that's just wrong. You can't say something like that. And that's just PC police. That's some bullshit. Who cares? You should be able to call somebody a fag. There was a great South Park episode about that. It just means annoying ass individual. I mean, in the movie, the guy was clearly calling them fags because he thought they were gay. And so what? It was a pretty funny scene in the movie. The movie was okay. I'll give it that. Or check it out if you like that kind of comedy. But there's a lot more value, I think, in Joe Bob Briggs sitting there talking about. I think there's a lot more value with Joe Bob Briggs talking about Ted Turner and how terrible that man is. He made fun of the guy on his own network. How do you get away with that? He did for a while before they just kind of unexpectedly canceled him. But he did like a series of, they showed the Friday the 13th movies, and they did the series in between the commercials during the whole thing. So it was like 8 hours long. It was a marathon. And things start happening on the set, and it turns out Ted Turner's trying to kill Joe Bob Briggs. How do you get away with that? You have to be doing a tongue-in-cheek horror show to just even touch that kind of thing. And if you listen to some of the things that Joe Bob Briggs said, he actually talked about how the political correct group, people, the PC police, people pushing this agenda, were actually ruining our society. He talked about it, on air. He talked about how men weren't allowed to be men anymore, and this is before the whole Fight Club thing. So he was pushing this whole we need to be, kind of go back to the roots. The men are being marginalized in society, And he really helped push against that. And there's not too many people on air or anything doing that today. Um, Besides these horror films, you get some like dark comedies occasionally, and some of these over the top comedies, the vulgar comedies, whatever you want to call them. They're pretty good, but you can get away with far more stuff in a horror film, I think. And I think that's where the value from those films really lies in our society, touching subject matter where other people are afraid to go. Sorry for all the interruptions, guys. I'm trying to finish this up. And I think the point I'm trying to make is that horror films are valuable to us as a tool, as a cultural tool to reach out to people. And just as an entertainment value, everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people like horror films. They like the experience of going with somebody, a date or something, watching them by yourself at 3 a.m. on TV, whatever your habit is, for watching this kind of stuff. They hit something in your soul. You can relate to them, and that doesn't necessarily mean you want to go out and strangle 30 people or something. That's just nonsense, completely insane. But view horror films as a way to unleash this whole politically correct nonsense, this box that we are forced into on a daily basis. You can't make certain jokes about certain people. You can't say certain things. You can't, look a certain way, whatever the case may be. If you were making a horror film, you can put that thing in there, and nobody would say a word about it. Or, the people that do, nobody would care that they said a word about it. It's just a movie, it's just a horror film, which is true. I mean, people, Jeffrey Dahmer, he was a crazy psychopath, and he would make people watch, I think it was Exorcist 3, before he, killed and ate them. Yeah, completely crazy. But I've seen Exorcist 3. It's an okay movie. It's better than the second one. Probably more entertaining than the first one. But should the movie be banned because this psychopath made people watch it before he killed them? That's insane to say that. I mean, if you think about it, that's completely unlibertarian to say something like that. People listen to violent gangster rap, and that doesn't mean they're going to go out and start shooting people. The people that do, they live that gang lifestyle, they'll probably listen to that music too. But they may also, may also jam to some Frank Sinatra or something. Should we ban that? And that was pretty big gangster music at one time too. Yeah, I know. But what about metal? I'm a big metal fan. I like old school thrash metal, Slayer. I'm a huge Iced Earth fan. That's pretty much as traditional as you can get, But all those people that used to say that if you listen to heavy metal, you're going to kill your family and yourself. And that's bullshit. That's just people trying to censor other people. They're trying to censor something that they don't like. The Christians that are always trying to censor the satanic stuff in things. Like you have a metal band that says they're Satanists, and part of their act is they're going to go and they're do like mock, sacrifices or something. Okay, maybe tasteless, it may be stupid, have nothing to do with the music. What the hell's the point? Shouldn't be banned. It's entertainment. They're not really doing it. As long as they don't hurt nobody, as long as nobody's really sacrificed to some god, whatever. It doesn't matter. That's all I'm saying. Just have fun, enjoy what you're doing, and don't worry about being politically correct.